In today's show, we have another of our popular Dynamite Conspiracy episodes where we discuss, is there an alien Stepford-style conspiracy replacing all our world leaders?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend. Once again, I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah. What the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Come on, try and be upbeat. Say hi to our audience. Come on.
You can't ask me for the two things. They're contradictory. Try to be upbeat, okay. Say hello to the audience. Well, that's so which is it? You got to choose, man.
I want you to do both. That's the whole point.
You don't have much, do you, out of life? Hello, audience.
Yeah. With this vigor and enthusiasm there, it's wonderful to see. Not. Anyway, before we continue with the topic of our show, I want to remind our listeners and viewers out there, if they'd be kind enough to like any of our shows, whatever platform you happen to be consuming it on. Now, we do often ask you to comment on any of the shows just to let us know what you think about it in terms of, are these topics you want to hear more of or less of, etc. However, we've subsequently discovered that some of the platforms that you happen to consume our content on, you can't actually comment. So in that case, would you be kind to actually do so on our Facebook page itself, which is facebook.com/the TNT Talk Show. Obviously, no spaces in any of that. And obviously comment on there on what you thought of the show, whether you like it, dislike it, etc. That way we can respond to you directly. So yes, keep those coming in. We love your feedback. We love your comments. Please, please, please keep that coming in. Thank you. Right, on with the show for today. And it is another of our popular Dynamite Conspiracy episodes. And today we're going to talk about, is an alien Stepford-style conspiracy actually happening because it's replacing our leaders? Taya, I'll pass this one to you because you actually brought up this claim. So do you want to elaborate?
I brought it up as a joke. I didn't know you were going to take it seriously. No, we're going to end up talking about it. So, a bit of a shock to find myself here thinking, eh? Well, the Stepford Wives, which it was a film I think has been remade a couple of times. And I've not watched anyone fully because it's just kind of boring for me. But I think it even won an Oscar or certain awards or something. Anyway,
I think it was a Raspberry Award, but something.
Was it? Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's a story. It's a story about husbands. I believe the original was the husbands were set back in the 50s or something.
Yeah.
And a model, living a model life. You know, nice houses. 2.4 kids. White picket fence. All this has been in America, obviously. And it turns out that whenever a wife got stroppy, they replaced the wife with basically a more compliant robot, and that's the general thrust of the film. So for our purposes, we take that idea of replacing people with compliant robots, in our modern language, we'd probably say clones, and we think to ourselves, why do we seemingly have a lot of Western leaders, and in particular Western leaders, who say one thing before they are elected and then act completely differently after election? For example, Giorgia Meloni, or I think it's Meloni of Italy.
Maloney,
You'd know
I
better.
think it is.
Meloni.
Giorgia Maloney, yeah.
She was very right wing, very pro Italy. Very look, we're going to do things our way. We're going to XYZ, and we're not tolerating this nonsense.
Wasn't she
And
even accused as, well, fascist?
yes, exactly. She was actually accused of fascism. Hang all these illegal immigrants, send them back to where the hell they came from. They've come from. Yada yada blah blah blah. And talking the good talk, really, you know, saying things that, well, to me as a right wing sort of person myself, it made a lot of sense, conservative sense. And then she got herself elected, and then a 180-degree turn. And you think, well, what's going on here? Was she just lying? I mean, if you take in Occam's razor, the easiest solution would be that politicians say one thing to get elected, but they actually believe something else. That's Occam's razor. That's the simplest solution. These people are lying toe rags, and when they are trying to get elected, they just tell you what they think you want to hear, but they that's not their true the truth the true outlook, the true feeling. So there is that, which might be the case, but when we look at other cases, when we look at someone like Francois Macron of France, who at the beginning of Russia's, I call it a war. The Russians call it a special military operation, but I'm going to call it a war. Russia's war in Ukraine. When you look at how dovish he was before, or before the war, and at the early start of the war, and how he has transformed now into one of the most belligerent Western, one of the most belligerent Western leaders, who is actually, and we've done a show on this, so you can look it up. I think the show was called "How Close Are We to the Third World War?" So you can listen to that show. He's actually, in my opinion, setting himself up, setting up France, and getting ready to send somewhere between 2,000 and 20,000 troops into Odessa region, oblast in Ukraine to support the Ukrainian armies, and he's going to go through Romania. So he's done a complete 180-degree turn. If we go back to, I believe it was Bill Clinton, he was going to tell us everything about UFOs when he was running for office. He was, look, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to open up the files. And as president, I promise that I'm going to share with you the actual situation, whether or not we've got anything, because people have a right to know. People have a right to know. People have a right to know. Well, they get into office, and guess what? No. I mean, as far as I can make out, he either got distracted by a certain lady in a blue dress and forgot what he was supposed to do. And for those of you too young to remember what the hell too
Look
young to
up
know what I'm
Monica
talking about,
Lewinsky.
you could just look up. You don't even need to do that. Just look for President Bill Clinton and the blue dress, and yeah, all sorts of things. So maybe he got distracted. We don't know, but he was there for 8 years, and you'd
Indeed.
have thought at some point he could have dragged himself away, especially after the scandal, and addressed this issue, but he never did. And
But
of
what's
course,
this got to do with the fact that you think that these politicians have got into power? You think that because of the theme of our show, do you think that they've actually been replaced by a clone or an alien of some sort? Or you said Occam's razor, which is the most logical option, is that the fact that they have seen the bigger picture and understand that maybe beforehand they weren't fully informed on how the enormity of what the job entails, and obviously the additional pressures therein, and the different people that it would affect positively and negatively. So they've had to make a different decision based on this new information, because clearly everybody's running for office, they think they know all the answers beforehand. You and I are the same, but we're not in that position, because when you're in a position of power, you now get provided additional information, which was, to all intents and purposes, secret. You now get privy to it because you get exposed, because you have to make decisions based on this information. And could it be, I'm not saying it is, but could it be that this new information that they now see, they sort of change their mind? They go, whoa, this is bigger than you and me. This is something that I can't reveal purely because of the magnitude of it. I don't know. I'm just throwing that in the mix. What are your thoughts?
I think that would have been another reasonable suggestion if we didn't have a clip, which I believe you're going to discuss with us. We didn't have a clip that is very confusing. It's Barack Obama in an interview, and his reaction to being asked if UFOs and aliens are real, to say the least, took me aback and continues to flummox me, because a straightforward answer to a straightforward question would have been, yeah, it's a load of baloney. There's no such thing. Come on. I've looked at the files. I've asked the right people, as president, and look, there's nothing. Okay, you guys just move on. That would have been a straightforward answer to a straightforward question. He could even have laughed and just really, aliens, really, honestly, come on, guys, grow up, that sort of thing. But I think you're going to suggest, his answer was not that at all, and that was a surprise. Finally, we will share
that with the topic of the show.
I don't want to spoil it, because I think you'll deal with that. And for me, the final nail in the coffin. Well, two. Sorry, I got two more to go. One was Trump. Trump is a loose cannon. So you imagine Trump finding out that there are aliens amongst us. I think he'd find a way to monetize that straight away. He'd just be like, oh, wow, really? I tell you, I can't do a Trump, unfortunately. We're going to make the best, the most beautiful, the most fantastic interplanetary, connection thing, and it was me that brought it to you. You can imagine Trump saying that. Instead of which, it goes quiet. And then finally, there was this big, and I'm going to return to two people, Trump and Obama, maybe even Clinton. The last year, towards autumn of last year, we were expecting, well, you were expecting, I thought they were going to tamp it down, that we're finally going to have disclosure, which is a special word when used by people discussing UFOs and so on. And disclosure means the final revelation that actually UFOs are alien piloted craft. So we've been waiting for disclosure. People who expect it to be true have been waiting for disclosure, I think, since 2000 or so. And last year there was a gentleman who made an appearance on the world stage, Western stage, and he was fully within the Secret Service infrastructure, American infrastructure, and very high official in that. And he said things that in front of Senate, not talking, to some gutter snipe.
Oath. You had to be telling the truth.
He wasn't talking to some rag, one of these weekend nonsense magazines that you get. He was actually on oath, as Tony has said, speaking to the Senate of the United States of America. I don't think you can get more serious than that. And he said things about UFOs and aliens and alien bodies and crashed craft. So we were expecting full disclosure, instead of which we just got dead silence. So I think when you it's a tenuous link, apart from what I've discovered I'm going to present during the show. It's a tenuous link. But you do start asking yourself if you're seeing a pattern that goes beyond the Occam's razor case.
So do you think that there is more? I mean, this is amazing if I'm going to get this from you, but do you think that there is more to the UFO or UAP, as they're now commonly called, issue with aliens? Do you feel then that behind closed doors, there is some, not prime directive, I'm using Star Trek talk here, where, just for the benefit of our listeners who've never followed Star Trek was a futuristic program. You're probably familiar with it, but not maybe watched it, where they had a law, which was the prime directive, which was they were not permitted to interfere with any species they encountered that were, in quotes, deemed less technologically advanced as they were.
No, the criterion was any species that had not achieved interplanetary travel on its own.
Okay.
That was the
Technology.
So that if you as a species, if you develop interplanetary travel, you will become aware of other species like ours, and then obviously we're not hiding anything from you at that point. You're aware of us, and now we can talk to you.
Yeah. So what we're saying here, we are fledgling travelers in space. We've got very little experience and we haven't gone very far.
We haven't even left our solar planet. Ha ha ha! How primitive can you people be?
So if there is any truth in this theory of alien contact, aliens among us influencing, they probably are, considering the amount of things that have been seen in the sky that cannot be identified clearly as to what their origin is. So it casts doubt. And obviously, the military of all the countries around the world would be left with their mouths open if they cannot deal with it to their population. So obviously, they've got to keep that quiet. But in so doing, there probably are things behind closed doors where there are alien species contacting Earth, but they are telling us that we cannot tell our populations of their existence in order to keep things quiet, because it's not our leaders choosing not to do it. It's because they're being instructed by an alien presence not to do it, so that it keeps things as they are, the status quo, and we are not putting fear into the population. We're keeping the machine of life running so people can get on with their lives, do the normal things, not be sort of changing their viewpoint, getting fearful. They're just going to work, doing their jobs, keeping the machinery of life ticking over, so to speak.
Well, one way that aliens could do that is to threaten mass human destruction. If they're found out, they can say, look, if we get XYZ from you, which is what we're here for, we don't need to destroy you. But we don't really care one way or another. If you toe the party line and do what we want you to do and keep our machinations out of it, we're happy to leave you humans alone. That would generally be the case unless and until there is something going on that threatens the stability of that agreement, such as a war against Russia leading to nuclear holocaust, which might turn the planet into something uninhabitable even for the aliens. So at that point, they being super intelligent might clone someone like President Macron and replace him, for example. I'm not saying President Macron is a clone, because I wouldn't be surprised if the French Secret Service would want to have a word with us if we said such a thing.
You're saying it, not me, guys.
Well, yeah, okay, have a word with me, but what would then be the plan? Because it looks as if there is a push towards nuclear war if France goes in. Then eventually NATO gets involved, and then eventually there's a world war.
I think if there is any influence from alien species on our leaders, the leaders are still human. Let's clarify that. They're not some, clone or invasion of the body snatchers. They are just been presented with information that they weren't aware of before they got into power. And therefore, this has changed their viewpoint and how they can respond. And obviously, if there is an alien influence affecting leaders of the world in some way, they're not controlling us completely, but they're just saying, look, these subjects over here, you cannot talk about openly with your public. That's all. The rest, you do what you like. However, if you start to mess up the status quo in some way, we will interfere. So they're still leaving humans to run the planet as we do. However, if we cross certain boundaries, then they may step in. And this is with the proviso that they are benevolent. They're not in it to ruin us in any way. They're in it because they are a superior species and they don't want us to be completely stupid. So they're not malevolent, because if they were malevolent, then, as you rightly say, they wouldn't care if they were known. They just want to suck our resources, whatever that is. But I think that they are benevolent to a point, that they want us to thrive, but not to the detriment of the planet or ourselves. And they could be like we are. If we, I mean, the case in point, we study our environment itself. We study animals on our planet. And by and large, we don't want to go in and kill animals unless they're for food. But generally, other species that we don't want to harm, we'll observe them, we'll look after them, we'll make sure they're okay, their habitats are safe. But we will put some boundaries around them, in so much that they can't then go into villages, for instance. So, they can live their own life, these animals, with a watchful eye from us humans. And I think that if there are aliens interacting with us, that is the sort of approach that they're taking, where they're observing us from afar. They still have dealings with some key people at the top level of government, but they don't still want their whereabouts to be told to the mass population, because it will affect the status quo and cause unknown issues that they don't want to be responsible for.
Yeah, I think there's some holes in that argument. Number one, I think the leaders that appear to be duplicitous to the point where you're asking, are they actually working on behalf of their populations or on behalf of someone else's interest, are Western leaders. No one is suggesting that President Xi of China or is it president or chairman? President Xi or President Putin of Russia. No one is suggesting these people are duplicitous and have been taken over by aliens. It seems to be amongst Western leaders, which tends towards the first argument of Occam's razor, which is that in order to get elected, you have to tell lies. However, that doesn't then account for the non-disclosure of disclosure. This is where it all, you see, everything is all nice, it's all human-based, it's all everyday politics. And then you just this one single question, sorry, what's going on in this particular area? It's extra fuzzy. It's extra malodorous. It stinks. Okay, there isn't a nice happy smell coming from that area. It's very JFK kind of assassination. Something here doesn't add up. So for someone like me who doesn't inherently believe in aliens, whoever's trying to cover it up is making a very, very bad case of it, because openness here would convince people like me that there's nothing to see here. If somebody flings open the door and says, look, there's nothing to see here, and you look in and you see there's an empty room, maybe there's something to hidden away that but you have a cursory glance, you go, yeah, nothing to see here. But when they go, there's nothing to see here, but you can't open this door. Then everybody's like, yeah, hold on. So why can't we open? Ah, yeah, it's for your own good. Actually, because it's just a waste of time opening the door because there's absolutely nothing behind the door. So, well, open the door then. No, we can't do that. No. So, do you see what I'm trying to say? That
I do.
without that problem of the non-disclosure of whatever that is being said, because this chap, do you remember his name? The guy that we're talking about? Oh,
David Gruff.
Sorry,
David Gruff, the one who went to Congress.
David Gruff.
Is it Gruff or Grush? Grush. David Grush.
Okay, David Grush, who went to Congress. This was 2023, so you can easily look it up. People. And I think we'll probably try to find a link for you. Anyway,
I've got David Grush on Wikipedia here. Actually,
fantastic. So
we can share
he asked Congress to take certain actions. They said, well, I've come to you. I'm not just here just to go blah, blah, blah. Can you please do X, Y, Z? And that way, either I'm talking nonsense or there's something there. Well, Congress hasn't done anything.
I mean, let's give them some time. I mean, it's not going to be something quick, is it? They're going to do their own investigations. They've got to get sign off because it could be that, because he did say in order to divulge a lot more of the information that he had to ensure that the people who he was divulging it to had appropriate security clearance in order to receive that information. So they too, even though they were part of Congress, they still had to sign equivalent of an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, because they were being shown information which was top secret. So
above top secret, I think.
Above, yeah. So secret. In order for that to happen, then they could be shown the information. But then once they've been shown that information, they've had to sign a non-disclosure agreement or equivalent, which means they then can't report it. They can just reassure the public, yep, we've seen it, like.
But they haven't done that.
Crush. No, because that takes time. To get security clearance takes time. Because if you think about it, all the members of the lower house in the House of Representatives.
No, it's a committee. It's not all the members.
No, but the ones who on the committee, there was a fair few of them. They would have to get clearance.
Can't be more than a dozen. And the reason I don't agree with what you're saying is that Congress is the ultimate power. Okay, the seats of power is the American Congress, not even the president, it's Congress. If Congress wants to see something, they can just pass a law to bypass everything and say, just show it to us.
But this didn't go to Congress. This is House of Representatives. It wasn't Congress. No, it wasn't.
Okay, so Congress, American Congress is two houses.
Two, yeah.
Bicameral. It's the House of Reps and Senate. So Congress is both together. So actually, we're kind of misusing the word.
Yeah. But it was only the lower chamber they went.
I thought the guy went to Senate.
No, he went to the House of Representatives.
Okay, they're less powerful than Senate, I think.
They are. They're more. They're
more cowboys. Although looking at Senate now in America,
it's almost, you can't parallel it exactly the same. But to the UK, we've got the House of Lords and the House of Commons. The House of Commons is the House of Representatives. That's really what it is. Whereas the Senate, is it the House of Lords? It's not really. They're
supposed to know what they're doing. Yeah. But much like our House of Lords, no, they flipping well don't. So unfortunately, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place with these people. Anyway, if it wasn't for that, there's a little bit about the disclosure thing. So, see, here's the problem. Maloney says, I'm against immigration. I'm going to do something about it. She gets in and she doesn't do anything about it.
How do you know? We haven't found all the policies of how Italy is being run.
I watch these things. So anyway, she's not done anything about it. They're complaining that they want to get rid of her now. So there's that. Now, that's one direction. That I would say is more liberal. As from someone who was supposed to be a proto-fascist, who's now espousing a more liberal cause. Then you look at Francois Macron, who was vis-a-vis the war, was more liberal and is now becoming more fascist about it. These are opposite directions, and you wouldn't think that the source of the change would be the same source, because it seems to be working against its own agenda in that case. Why would you why if it would make more sense if everything was always in one direction, everything was towards liberalization. Why can't I say liberalization? Everything was towards liberalization, or everything was towards conservative fascism, but it's not. So it argues against the case that it's a single source
Well,
that's doing anything.
well, I don't think it is, because I don't think they're gonna be that far. They're not going to be that interested or closing in on the way governments run. They're not.
Mm.
I think that is being left to humans, us. We can run how we want to run. And at the end of the day, how Macron behaves is no concern of theirs. He can behave and switch around however he chooses. And clearly he's changing his attitude based on how he's been affected by what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, etc. So he's free in terms of his movement and how he's positioning himself. Where the alien side comes in is if they are influencing top politicians in certain, as we've used before, red lines. You can talk about anything you want. You're totally free, except for these two areas, for instance, that you cannot mention anything about meetings with alien species and, yeah, anything to do with aliens and disclosure. You just can't do it. That's it. Everything else is up to you. You run your own planet how you want to run it. And if there is that sort of caveat, then they've got a lot of flexibility. So the actions of some of our leaders are changing whilst in power because they're reflecting how the world is changing in terms of things are changing as far as Macron's concerned. First, he was campaigning to be a centrist, and now he's got into power and he's had to change because it's not as easy going as he probably initially thought. I mean, Boris Johnson's another one. I mean, before he came into power, he was a buffoon. He was literally a bit colourful in his language, his controversial statements, and then he got into power. He couldn't handle things properly, could he?
But that could actually be a sign that the alien technology is too good. That they are so intelligent that their technology cannot have reproduced a buffoon like Boris Johnson. That although they tried, some level of their intelligence seeped into their programming, and therefore what came out afterwards was less buffoonish than what had gone in. What had gone in, the seed that had gone in, was a complete and utter nincompoop, and they did try to reproduce that, but the intrinsic nature of their intelligence seeped into the output, and that became more intelligent than.
Okay, let's look at this in an interesting manner. I mean, could it be that each politician somehow gets slightly more responsible when they're in power? Because let's be honest, prior to being in power, you can say whatever you like to win support. But when you're in power, there are going to be some constraints, things that will impact what you originally proposed. I mean, look at in the UK, for instance, both major parties, in fact, all major parties, they produce what's called a manifesto. I don't know what the equivalent is in the States, which is outlining what they propose to do, and it's in black and white, what they propose to do when in government. So this is what we're going to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then they get into power and they hardly implement half of these things because they discover that A, maybe they don't have the funds, B, Circumstances, once you're in power, change a trajectory of what you were trying to implement. And so they half-heartedly get something in, and then they realize, oh my goodness, we haven't got the funds, so we really can't do it. And so to save face, they change direction, because a lot of the decision making can be put down to funding, because a lot of the projects and things that they put in place whilst in power take funds. When you're out of power, it's all, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then you discover when you're in power that it actually takes a lot more money than you anticipated because of other factors you may not have considered. And so in order to save face, they have to either water down the things they propose to apply once in power, or they have to scrap them all together and think, well, that wasn't that great an idea to begin with, because the bill was just something that the public could not fund. And so they've had to reconsider.
I think your argument would have something to it if only we didn't have people like Javier Milei of Argentina, who said buffoonish things before he was elected, and after election has gone full pelt towards absolute nincompooperi and lunacy. I mean,
Give us an example. Give us an example.
Well, as an example, he wanted to. He was talking about being with. He was going to dump the Argentine peso.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this. I know you don't believe it. Nobody else did. It was going to dump there, but they elected him. By the way, he said it was going to dump the Argentine peso.
Okay.
And then go with the American dollar.
Oh, wow.
So we're just going to use American dollar.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know where you're going to get American dollars from. I mean, you're unilaterally saying you're going to use American dollars.
That's ridiculous.
Have you asked the Americans if they're willing to fund your government? You haven't. Anyway,
you're giving away control of your whole government if you can't print your own banknotes.
It's not
That's a big problem.
On, I think you're missing the point. It's like, where'd you get the dollars from?
Well, yeah, you'd have to get them from the States to begin with. But you've handed your whole financial country. You haven't. There's no point having a finance industry because you've handed it over to another country. It's like Scotland, for instance. They use the pound.
Yes.
They're struggling because they don't make the money decisions because that's still made at Westminster in London.
Well, the Scottish case, I think we shouldn't bring into this, but let's talk about that another time.
Okay.
Anyway, afterwards, so we thought, well, this is kind of bonkers, but I suppose if he goes in with them, if he takes the dollar on somehow, I don't know how he's going to do it, but let's assume he's brilliant and he's found some kind of maneuver that we haven't thought of, and he's going to get rid of the peso. And then at the same time, Argentina, with the previous president of Argentina, Sergio Massa, what was his name? Sergio Massa. He had gone into I think he had actually taken Argentina into BRICS. All they were supposed to do in January of this year was just to sign the memorandum and just sign on to BRICS. So we thought, actually, you know what? With the yuan on one side and with the dollar on the other side, who knows? Maybe this is some brilliant strategy. He'll walk a fine line. It will take a lot of very, very deft diplomacy to keep the Americans on board. But assuming he can do that, look, it could be a masterstroke. And then he gets in, and then I believe it was his first address to Parliament. He goes, "Oh yeah, stuff BRICS. We're not going to go." And I was like, "Sorry, what? What do you? Sorry, excuse me.
Do you want to explain what BRICS is? Because some of our listeners and viewers may not know what BRICS is.
Okay, BRICS is well, it's a club, if you like. So it's a club. It's a club for nations. BRICS is the BRICS. So B, Brazil, R, Russia, I, India, C, China, and S, South Africa. And it has grown in influence. I think it's not a power. It doesn't peddle power. It peddles influence. It's now been joined by Egypt. Who else? Egypt, Saudi Arabia, I believe. A couple of others that I don't. Oh, Ethiopia for some funny reason. I don't understand why Ethiopia. And it's now called BRICS Plus, and it was meant to include Argentina. Now, the thing about bringing Argentina on is that nobody in BRICS wanted them apart from Brazil.
Right.
And the only reason they were invited in was because Brazil put a lot of pressure on President Putin, and Putin then said to President Xi of China, well, so just let everyone be happy. So Brazil to Putin, Putin to China, and then with sort of grudgingly, all right, let's take Argentina in, because Argentina is a basket case. I had no idea that about 150 years ago, Argentina was one of the richest countries on the planet.
Really?
I had no idea. It was
I didn't
all
know
this
that either.
that brought it up. It's just been mismanaged to the point where not very rich now.
Really? So what's their export then to justify the fact they were rich?
Well, they had a lot of cattle and a lot of agriculture. They were really big in agriculture and cattle.
Okay.
Another thing, yeah. So apparently they were really rich.
So they were the
and they
bread
were well managed
basket
at one point. Sorry,
of South Africa, the bread basket of
America.
South Africa. Of South America, apologies, yes.
Yeah, well, they were worldwide. So I remember that
Okay.
even the Germans were quite interested in Argentina at one point. And after the Second World War, apparently quite a lot of Nazi officers ended up in Argentina.
Yes,
So they had it, but they just mismanaged apparently. So where was I? I can't remember now.
BRICS
Anyway, so yeah, so they as soon as he said this in Parliament, everybody in BRICS went, "Ooh." I gave a big sigh of relief, and then since then he's taking on. He's a bit like America, fighting everybody everywhere all the time. He's taking on everyone. He's taking on the unions. He's taking on the journalists. He's taking on the politics. It's just there's no sense of who are my allies, who are my enemies, what is my strategy, where am I going to head over. So he's an interesting.
It seems to be a bit of a I don't know. We're digressing slightly from our topic here, but some of the leaders who have been elected. I mean, you're right to highlight this guy of Argentina, but then we just had somebody in Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, who was a bit of a controversial figure because before power he was this military officer who was sort of a strong man, conservative views, but do the right thing, tackle corruption. And then he got into power and he had controversy because environmental issues, corruption behind the scenes, pandemic didn't exist, didn't want to do that, although loads of people died in Brazil. International relations strained, was building enemies everywhere. So you're right into a point, but that doesn't mean that, going back to our topic, that
they've been taken over by aliens.
No, they've
How's
just
this for
been
conspiracy?
making poor decisions.
I've sent you a link which you should share with our
audience.
Aliens has instead of have, so it's not written by a native English speaker. Aliens have replaced, again, no D in replaced world leaders
with clones.
Now, what's interesting here is that if you read this article and the subsequent article, which I've provided, anyway, you can just follow the links. It says, quote, during April of 1979, for the period of a week and a half, President Carter and Vice President Mondale were out of public view, end quote. Then there's some special, what do you call it? There's some.
What do you mean exactly by out of view? What's that mean?
Well, the public didn't know where they were from time to time.
Can they not be on holiday? Can they not have a break with family?
Well, it says, well, again, I could quote, but there's no point. I'll paraphrase. Okay. It says Carter, who at the time was dying of leukemia as a result of material injected into his food by the CIA, went to Georgia with his family for a 10-day scheduled vacation. So he says that the president was out of view for a week and a half, and then explains it that actually he was on holiday for 10 days, which would kind of explain why he was out of view for a week and a half. But hey, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just reading what's on the screen.
Okay.
And then Walter Mondale, is President Carter's vice president, supposedly went on a trip. Why supposedly? I don't know. He went on a trip to Iceland, Scandinavia, and the Netherlands. Which, if true, possibly anyone of us following news locally would explain why Walter Mondale was out of view for
A week.
a weekend. Although, to
They're
be
not
fair,
supposed to be.
it would be on
Yeah.
peculiar for the president to be on holiday and the vice president to not be in place as acting president.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a rule, isn't there, apparently, that of course they can take holidays, but not at the same time.
Not at the same time,
Yeah.
precisely. Anyway, quote, on April 21st, 1979, President Carter and his family were executed.
What?
The real Walter Mondale was executed by Operation Deep Freeze, and I'll give a link to that, on the evening of April the 20th, 1979, in New Richmond, Wisconsin. End quote. Now, these are very, well, you were a bit shocked by that. So these are shocking allegations, to say the least. And what makes me feel maybe this can't be taken all that seriously is that this stuff is available on YouTube.
Okay.
So for a major conspiracy, I must say the security around this is really, really, really dreadful. but thinking about how do these things get started? So this is a website. I forget exactly what it's called. It's called Above Top. No, is it called Above Top Secret? It's something like that. Military Strategy and Technology. Sorry. And this, as we're talking about offline, why do these conspiracies begin? It's because I think it's because you have this nice, warm, fuzzy feeling that you know something that other people don't know. You know, you look up with pity upon other people who are normies, who don't know anything. Yeah. You know, it's all in front of you, man. It's all in front of you.
Pride in knowing something that someone else doesn't. Oh, well, I can tell you something because it's gossiping, isn't it? Almost.
Precisely. Or if only you knew what I know.
I hate that when people tell me this.
And then this Operation Deep Freeze that was quoted, I clicked on it. I went and had a look. It's got nothing to do with anybody executing anyone. It's talking about the Antarctica. That's it. It's just about
Project Deep Freeze, which is sort of linked to cold. You'd have thought.
Okay, and what's that got to do with executing anyone? So I suppose if these conspiracies, and the reason I'm bringing it up is my proposition that aliens have taken over, or the proposition that aliens have taken over is going too far. Is going beyond what the evidence or lack of evidence, because that's what we're actually complaining. That's what I'm complaining about. It's the lack of response from. You said the House of Reps. I still think it was Senate. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
With this David Grush. Thank you, Grush. That should have been. I was full. Let me explain myself. I was fully expecting that by October or November of last year, the matter of aliens would have been dealt with conclusively, and finally, like there's nothing to worry, nothing to see here.
Okay.
Instead of which, we still got this big question mark hanging over the human race. It's the exact opposite of what I was expecting.
So does that change your view? Hence why we're discovering this, because you're thinking, hold on a minute, some of these leaders have completely done a 180 and gone the other way. So if the leaders are not answering the question on aliens, whether they're here or not, there's still ambiguity on that. Could there be, and you've married the two, that some of these leaders aren't who they say they are? They literally have been changed by a off-worldly or alien force that means that they're changing the way they govern because they're no longer the original people who were voted in the first place. Is that the link you're trying to make here?
That's the link that has been made, not by me, but by someone Some people I don't follow exactly, but I do come across them from time to time. That's the link that they're making. I don't believe it myself. However, I can see where you could become a sworn president of a Western nation because, like I say, so far it seems to be all in the West. I can see a situation where you're sworn in and you're sitting in your office, and then they say, "Oh, the people from MI6 want to have a word with you, or the CIA, or whoever." And then they come and say, "Sir, there's something we've got to tell you. You'll find it a bit shocking." And okay, one of two things. They either open up a file or they take off their masks.
I think they have to be debriefed first.
Who?
An NDA, whoever it is, just in
I'm
case.
saying, no, the people who've just sworn in as president, whatever,
Yeah.
not NDA, they're
No,
making
no.
a threat now.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
taking off
So
their
it's a
mask
threat now.
and they're showing you who they are and what they've got. And then they take you back through things they've done. And then they take you back to 1963 and they say, you see, when this man, President Kennedy, was shot, had nothing to do with CIA, blah, blah. He was going to spill the beans about us.
Wow.
So you've got to know, you can decide what you're going to do, but it's up to you. Now, that the reason I go with this particular, I'm not talking about ripping off the mask or anything, but that there is a threat is because of what Obama said. Now, can you finally share with the audience what did Obama say, and I'll take it from there.
Well, he didn't. He said he did joke about it though. He did, didn't he? He was slightly joking, but he says he's not at liberty to say. That was one of the words he used, and he said, and the interviewer said to him, "Have you, if you would find out, could you not tell us?" He goes, I'm not at liberty to say." He couldn't say it. He couldn't say it. And he didn't say, no, there's nothing here nothing to see. He goes, he did admit that, yes, there are things in the sky that we cannot explain. He didn't outrightly say there were aliens, but he did say there were things they don't know how they behave, and they're in our airspace.
Now, I've watched that video, that clip, and I think that the laugh is misunderstood. He's not laughing and making it into almost like a joke or something. He's laughing at the naivety of the question. To me, he's laughing at the naivety. He's like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So no, I can't tell. Now, why would the president say I can't?
Yes,
I'm not
I
at
can't.
liberty. Who? What is prevent? This is even a question
Yeah,
that
no.
the
What
interviewer
is
didn't ask. Is that sorry? What prevents you from? Is there a law? Because if it's a law, it should be on the statute books, and we should know about it.
No, it's an NDA, non-disclosure agreement.
Well, who is
Security services.
Sorry, the
course they do.
president is the owner of the security services.
Yeah, but he
No,
knows.
the president is the owner of the
Yeah,
security
no,
services.
but he hasn't got absolute power.
Well, he kind of does. This is why the case against Trump is going to fail. The case against Trump for taking those secret documents home is that the documents were meant for his eyes.
No, the documents belong to the US.
The
as
documents
a nation,
were meant
not even
to
the president.
Went to the. I know this because I followed the case. That's why it's going to fail. I'm predicting it's going to fail because the documents.
Fail.
Yeah, it's going to fail because the documents were created for his eyes. He's the owner. That's what the Steve Turley. Is it Turley? Turley. Professor Steve Turley. Yeah, okay. I'll try looking up. He's a constitutional lawyer, and he's the guy that I get this American thing from. And he's Steve Turley, I believe. And he said categorically that these documents are for the president's eyes. And if he wants to take them home, he can freaking well take them home.
The point
he doesn't have the case to answer.
No, the point is, explain why. It's because some documents can be for the eyes of a particular individual as long as they're not taken off site. So, yes, they're his documents. Yes, he can read them wherever he wants within the building, but they cannot leave the premises because of their delicate nature. So the fact he then chose, even though they were documents for his eyes, to remove them from the secure building and take him to a place that hasn't been vetted for security is the issue here. Not the documents themselves, if they were for his eyes. It's the fact that he took them away from the premises, that he wasn't allowed to do so. And that's the problem.
Instead of us arguing, I've got a simple question for you, which I'm sure you'll be happy to answer. Are you a professor of American constitutional law?
Am I?
Yeah.
No.
All right, then keep quiet and then listen to the professor.
No.
Listen to the professor of
Okay.
constitutional law, which of course is the fallacy of authority that I always quote. So I'm not breaking my own fallacy. What I'm doing here is I'm sending you a link, and then we can leave it to our audience.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. In my line of work, in my previous life,
I'm not going to accept it, no matter what you tell me.
No. Let me just tell you, I have had to, because of nature of some sensitive contracts that I was involved with, we had to sign NDAs. Okay, non-disclosure agreements. Okay, because you were seeing sensitive information to do with finance from the two companies involved. So you had to sign an NDA. And that information was encrypted that you could read, but you could not take off premises. Now, if the companies that I've worked for employ something like that, that I was allowed to read after I signed the non-disclosure agreement, but I wasn't permitted to remove them from the offices, even though they were made for me because I signed it and said, yep, I'm allowed to look at this. This is my copy. Yes. So I can read it because I've signed a non-disclosure agreement. I was still not permitted to take them out the building. Hence why it's going to be a technical issue that will cause the problem for Donald Trump. Whether it wins is subjective, but there is that technical element that the law and part of that agreement may do in his case. I don't know all the details, but may have that stipulation that says if you read this information, yes, it's for your eyes, but you cannot leave the premises with this information. And that's all I'm saying. There is that potential. I haven't seen all the details of the case, but that could be one of the reasons why they're pursuing it. But personally, I don't think it will win. It's too weak a case if it is that. Because, as you rightly say, he's allowed to read it.
Well, we've really wandered off the topic here.
No, I know we have. But
anyway, I'm sending a link to the gentleman's YouTube video, YouTube channel in the first instance.
Okay, we'll add that to our blurb as well.
But I'll try to actually locate the actual video where he discusses it. And as I say, he is a constitutional expert, so I think he knows what he's talking about.
Well, no, I get
you never owned the documents. Your company owned.
That is true. That is true.
So in the case, in what I believe my understanding of what Dr. Turley, professor or doctor, is saying, I think it's doctor, not professor, what Dr. Turley is saying, my understanding is that he said that actually Trump owns the document. The president.
I'm surprised by that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, like I said, but it'd have been nice if I could. Nice, I hate that word. Nice. It would have been useful if I could give the exact video. I will look for it, but in the meantime, I've supplied a link that can take you to Turley's YouTube channel, and you can try to locate the video.
But I mean, we digress slightly with that, in terms of Trump.
The next one is Obama has used 39 social security numbers.
What's that got to do with him being an alien or not?
Because he was cloned pre his presidency, according to the conspiracy. He was cloned and set up to become the president of the United States of America, which is one reason why he became, is it the youngest president or something? Or the one-term only senator became a president, that everything was done to ease him fast track him into the presidency.
Was he an alien as far as you're concerned then?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No, I'm quoting other people. I don't believe in aliens.
I mean, the reason I'm saying that now is because we're getting to close to the top of the hour, so
Well,
we'll have
there's
to
the
look
link
at
anyway. If people want to go
summarizing.
down that,
Okay.
if people want
We
to go
will
down
share
that
this
rabbit hole.
with our audience in part of our blurb for the show, of course. So, I mean, yeah, we are getting to the top of the hour, so I do want to ask you to summarize on this topic. So, do you believe this alien Stepford-style conspiracy is actually replacing our leaders or not? Or are they, is it a more simpler explanation?
I'm not sure it's a simple explanation. I don't believe it is alien Stepford style replacement or cloning of the presidents or the leaders. But I do think there is something going on, which is either a globalist, a globalist cabal, which is teleguiding Western governments, but I don't know what ability they have to pressurize people like Maloney to change to change her tune completely. So there's the idea that people like George Soros have poured so much money into creating basically a secret world government that that if it did exist, you'd say, well, I can understand how they can get to some people, but I don't understand how they get to all the people they need to get to. It's either that or it's something else entirely. If you discount the non-disclosure,
Yeah.
then there's it's a conspiracy of some sort. I mean, there's a conspiracy, end of story. There is, from my point of view, yes, there's a conspiracy. It's what's the source of the conspiracy? That's where there's a question. If you disregard non-disclosure, it's entirely some kind of human cabal of super rich people.
But wouldn't you have thought that somebody in that case would want to do the right thing and go against it? Or is it as soon as you get into power, your family is up for pressure?
If you have enough evidence that these people are serious and you will lose
You will toe the line to what we
if you
say.
don't toe the line, there's you're not going to succeed. You'll toe the line.
But you don't think it's an alien doing that. You think it's
If it wasn't alien, it's very confusing why they seem to work against themselves in certain instances. However, the reason I'm not discounting it is because of the non-disclosure of disclosure. I just feel that it would be very easy. The couple of times that we've come to the edge where it's been easy for someone to say it's a load of baloney. The first instance was Barack Obama. The second instance was whoever in Congress that David Grosh reported to. They've had two opportunities to just tell us it's nonsense. There's nothing to say here, jog on, which I expected they would have done. Both times they didn't do it. So it would be ridiculous for me that I always preach we have to follow the spoor, follow the spoor. I'm seeing the spoor and I don't want to follow it. No, I'm going to have to follow the spoor. Against my better judgment, against my innermost beliefs that there are no aliens. At the same time, I'm having to look at this and just go, well, do you know what?
There could be because they're not poo-pooing it. Yeah,
they're not poo-pooing it. People who should be able to poo-poo it aren't.
I mean, my opinion is similar to yours. I don't think our leaders are being replaced, but I do believe that they are seeing information that is obviously above top secret, and they cannot then disclose that to their respective public. They have to continue their job, do however they see fit to run the country, but actually revealing that aliens are present and interacting with society, I don't think so. I think that that is a line they're not allowed to cross. And going back to your cabal, we could have a show on that. Could the cabal actually have alien presence in it? That's a question for another time.
That's a new one.
a new
Yeah.
one anyway. But I mean, we could obviously cover this again at length. We may do in the future, but unfortunately for today, we have reached the end of the show for another week.